Leisa Show.
As always, I'm Greg.
And I'm Lisa. And we are back for a new topic this week, and it's about estate planning. Not necessarily estate planning, it's about taking care of getting your ducks in a row before you get sick and then after you are no longer with us. Now, I know my kids don't have anything in a row. They don't have anything ready to go. And no matter how much I talk to them, but they're not the only ones. A lot of people I talk to don't have this taken care of. Now, when I was younger and my kids were little, I wanted to know where my kids were going. Because if you don't, have a will that states who is going to take custody of your kids, if something should happen to you both and you get in a car accident, then it's going to go revert back to your state statute of descent and distribution. And it's going to come back to who has the legal ability to step up and take, become the guardian over your kids. And it could be a fight, it could be nobody, it could be an issue. And so when you have kids, I think it's very important that you want to do that and you name those people. And so when my kids were little, I named my brother and his wife. I checked with them first, made sure they were good, and then I knew. I tucked it away. Thank the Lord, I never needed it, but I knew, and I had that satisfaction of knowing where they were going to go if something should happen to their dad. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's obviously not something you want to.
Yeah,
that's not something you want to leave hanging out there.
No, it's not.
Children. Yeah.
But there is a lot involved, and the first part we're going to talk about today is what you need to do right now that is going to affect you if you should get sick, you get in a coma, you can't talk, for yourself. You need to have somebody in charge of who can make those decisions for you. And one of the first things on our list is
healthcare power of attorney.
Right. And this healthcare power of attorney gives that person, and all these documents most of them will have a primary and an alternate. So if the first person you pick can't serve, the alternate can. But it says who can talk on your behalf, who can make the healthcare decisions for you. Because if you get sick and you don't have a healthcare power of attorney or somebody that can make those decisions, I can't help you, neither can anybody else. It's going to come back to the doctors.
Yeah.
And, whether you want to be kept alive on life support or not, it may end up happening because you didn't take care of your business. Which takes us to the living will.
And just real quick, this document, this is the wishes for how you want to be treated at the end of your life and after you're gone.
Right. Well, that tells, do you want to be kept alive on life support? Do you want to be kept alive with a feeding tube? How do you want to be kept alive? Or do you just want to be off of life support because you don't want to be in a vegetative state the rest of your living days? So that living will tells how you want to, be treated. The healthcare power of attorney gives that person the opportunity to make decisions for you, and that only goes into effect when you can't speak for yourself or you're not of sound mind. Now, the DNR for do not resuscitate means do not resuscitate, and that typically is a form that has to be signed at the doctor's office, and the doctor has to sign it and you have to sign it. So if you have a DNR and they think they can bring you back, they don't have to because you say do not resuscitate. So don't get out the heart paddles, don't do any heroic measures.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean they won't try in certain situations, but
Right.
It does mean there is a point where they will stop.
Right. So, now the general power of attorney is kind of like giving the keys to the kingdom. And this is the power of attorney that you want to have signed and tucked away, and you want that person to be somebody that you can trust. Because in signing this general power of attorney, it gives them the ability to sell real estate, sign on your checking accounts, take care of any stocks and bonds, anything that you would do, they could stand in your shoes to do. The only reason that this is really important is if you are in a coma or cannot pay your bills and you're in the hospital, this gives this person the opportunity to pay your bills, take care of things that need to be taken care of.
And to be able to use your assets to do so.
Right.
Yes.
And you want to be very careful because you don't want them to rip you off because they could take and do anything and everything they wanted with your assets at any point in time. Now, the power of attorney dies when you die, so, that's only as good as long as you are living. Now there's HIPAA regulations. Whenever you go to the doctor, they ask you if there's anybody you would like to have medical information on.
Mm-hmm.
Each doctor's office will have their own form, and you can add on there whoever you want, whether it be your kids, a friend, or whoever that can also have access to your medical information. Now, Medicare also requires a document to be signed that says that, like my daughter is on mine, she can call into Medicare and talk about, any issues with Medicare because I've given that permission. If you don't get permission for these things, they're not going to talk to you. There's privacy, and they, have nothing that says you have given them the right to have that information. So
Absolutely.
there should always be somebody else on your account besides you, or at least, a beneficiary or a payable on death account, which takes us into the savings and
Excellent
checking account.
segue.
Yeah.
Yep. So, aside from those documents, there are a number of other things you have to consider. What's going to happen when you're gone to these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, savings and checking accounts.
Right. On the savings and checking accounts, you need to look at the verbiage cards on each account, because sometimes the newer verbiage on cards will say that if one party dies, the other person on the account automatically gets the money. Now, if you have an older account, it's probably not going to be there. You need to look at the verbiage, or you want to make sure you either have the account payable on death, which is a POD account, or a beneficiary on those
Yep.
accounts.
And your, your local bank branch or credit union or whatever that might be will be able to help you.
Right, you
that.
can go in and ask for a copy of the signature card, and they'll be able to print it up or pull it up for you. Everything that we're getting ready to talk about now, a will, which we're going to get to, later on in the segment. What we're trying to do in this first part says you don't need your will, okay? Because you can take care of just about 100% of your assets without needing to have a will or go through probate if you take all these steps. Now, if you don't take all these steps, then you probably are going to have to open up a probate and do an estate because you didn't cover something, or you didn't think about something, or there was an unforeseen circumstance. But the same with, stocks and bonds and life insurance. You need to make sure you have beneficiaries on all of those.
The 401k, you have that in the heading also, and that is by far my biggest singular asset that I have. So.
Yeah. So where is it going to go? If you don't designate it, it's going to go into your estate, and then it has to be opened up through probate.
Yeah, and with my work, if you have a 401k, I'm sure you can relate. Most of those systems, if you haven't set a beneficiary, will electronically, but still hound you about setting that up. So a lot of these systems do remind you, but you still, at the end of the day, have to go and do it.
Yeah, you have to make that decision. Now, with real estate and your deed to your house, there's the right of survivorship deeds, which typically when a husband and wife buy a house, it goes to the other party if you have the right of survivorship. If you don't have a right of survivorship, you can also do a transfer on death deed. Now, each state does not always have that, so you have to check with your state. So all 50 states don't have transfer on death, but you need to check and see what your state has and if this can be done.
Yeah.
Because if it can, that's another avenue that, you don't have to go through probate and sell your house. The same goes for your automobiles, your boats, your RVs. These are titled vehicles, and you can go to your local bureau, motor vehicle bureau, and get a title that says transfer on death. That's the only thing I don't have done, is I don't have my transfer on death on my car. And it's just a matter of going to the bureau and getting a title with it says TOD on who I wanted to transfer.
Well, your vehicles are going to die well before you do anyway. So
I
don't think you have to worry about. They're not going to be around then.
Probably not. So, but if you've taken care of all those things that we have mentioned, then chances are you're probably not going to need your will. And your will is kind of a backup plan. But it does state your wishes, and so you want to make sure that you have a will. Everybody should have one, because especially if you have kids, but also if there's things that you want specific people to get, you want to make sure that those items are taken care of.
Or if you want to force your son-in-law to put "my mother-in-law died on the tombstone," you can put it in there.
Yeah, I can put it in there. So now, in our state, You cannot disinherit a spouse, but you can disinherit your kids. You do not have to leave something for your kids. And again, with each state, you're going to need to check and see what your state requires or it says. But each will, when you get ready to make your will, is going to need to have either an executor, which is a male, or an executrix, which is a female, to be in charge of your estate. So you need to list a primary, and then you would also list an alternate. Typically, your wills are your administrative expenses and your funerals get taken care of first. So if there's any money in the estate, those things get paid first. Creditors would have to file an estate claim if they want to get paid. They have to prove documents that they're entitled to get paid, but also you have to do an inventory of all the property and personal belongings that the decedent has. If you have the minor age children, and I can't, say this enough, is you need to have somebody designated to take care of those kids. Otherwise, there's going to be a battle. One of the things too that you need to make sure that you have done is who's going to be in charge to take possession of your body when you are no longer alive. A lot of times it's the next of kin. But if you don't have a living next of kin, then you need to sign a form that states this is the person that you want to make sure your body gets to the funeral home or to the crematory or whatever you have decided. Also, you can put that verbiage in the power of attorney because it does show your wishes, but there is a form that can be taken care of. On the life insurance, you want to make sure that you have a beneficiary listed, and you can put as many beneficiaries on there as you would like, and you can also put percentages out there on who you want a 50-50 split or you want a 30-20, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you have your beneficiary listed. There's a single payment premium policies that aren't listed very often or you don't hear a lot about. But some of the life insurance companies, you can deposit, say, $10,000 into the account, and it's worth $20,000 at the time of your death. And you have to read the fine print, but you make that payment once and it's done. So if you have extra cash laying around and you don't want to invest it, and you want to know that your funeral is going to be taken care of, you can definitely get a life insurance policy.
Yeah, and that's great because that money is certainly not going to grow, but it's also protected.
Right, but it also doubles.
It doesn't grow in the traditional. If you're a young person and you
Right.
do that, it may not grow. It's not going to grow necessarily in the way that a traditional, stock portfolio might.
Right.
But it's going to be there, and it's going to not necessarily double. Your policy may be different, but
and you always have to read the fine print. You need to get used to reading the fine print on everything. No matter what you sign, you need to take the time to read it. Doesn't matter whether you're signing for a mortgage, a loan, a credit card, or life insurance, even your checking accounts. You need to read the verbiage on your checking accounts because a lot of times on your checking accounts, it'll give you or the lender a right to offset your checking account if you have a delinquent debt. And if you didn't read that fine print, you wouldn't know that. Sometimes it'll also say that, this can cover as collateral, and they'll do a cross-collateralization. But you have to read the fine print, and each state is different. So there's always, if you have any questions, you can always, talk to your attorney. Also, you can do sometimes your legal aid. Your legal assistants will be able to ask questions for you. Social Security, if you are married, you are entitled to a one-time spousal benefit. It was $255 the last time I checked from Social Security. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to make it sound like $255 isn't a lot of money. That certainly it's not nothing, but
no, but something is better than nothing.
It's when you consider a life has been lost, that amount of money does kind of seem.
But again, Social Security has a form that you need to sign and say if there's somebody else that can talk about your Social Security benefits. And again, like my daughter is on there, so she can talk about things like that in case I can't. She can call them and talk to them. Because even when it comes time to when you're no longer with us and somebody is trying to notify Social Security may or may not talk to you because they don't have a right, even though you're notifying them of a decedent.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the worst things that can happen is, if somebody has passed away and you can't actually convey that information.
Yeah. Or they don't believe you, because they do want the death certificate, but you're trying to, give them a heads up and to let them know, because you want to make sure they know so nobody gets a hold of your credit information and spends while you're still, warm on the table.
Identity theft certainly doesn't end when you die. There's a lot of bad stuff with that.
There is. One of my friends who had passed away in 2021, somebody tried to do identity theft on her, and I got notice that they opened up an account, and it was like I had to say, because I was in charge of her estate, that this is fraud. This person was deceased and didn't do that. There's always a lot of questions about trusts. Trusts are, to me, if you have a lot of money, usually assets more of $600,000 and up, you would want to maybe look at doing a trust. The thing with doing a trust is everything own goes into the name of the trust. So if you have a house, it's John Doe Trust. Your house is going to be deeded and transferred into the name of John Doe Trust. So is your car, so is your checking accounts. Any asset that you have is going to go into the name of the trust. So you have to decide if that is what's best for you and you want to go through that process. Now, if you have a lot of money and there are people that, maybe are on disability that you want to leave money for, so you can see that they're taken care of, there are special needs trusts that you can set up, but they are irrevocable. And you would want to talk to an attorney about all the different types of trusts that are out there. It is an expense to go through that, but like I said, if you have a large sum of money, it is something to look at if it's going to be in your best interest.
So what would the benefit of a trust be? So if, let's say I have that $600,000, what would be a benefit of a trust?
The benefit would be that you don't have any assets, and however the trust is set up, the trustee can disperse everything that's in the trust. You don't have to go through probate. You don't have to open up an estate. Everything is in the trust and it's spelled out. There's an administrator of the trust and that's going to take care of the trust. You actually, like if you are still alive in the trust, you could be the administrator. Your wife could be the alternate. And then you would just pay everything out of the trust, but there's nothing in your name only.
Okay, and last question about that. How many times do you think you said the word trust in the past minute and a half?
Too many.
No, that's all right. I asked that question because it's a thing a lot of people don't know a lot about.
Yeah, they don't, and it's not that it's a confusing instrument, but you do want to talk to your local attorney because they need to make sure there's specific verbiage in their trusts that's going to protect you. So, what happens to the trust when there is nothing left? These are questions that you're going to ask. If there's nothing left in the trust will basically go defunct. How much does it cost to set up a trust? It can be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 and up, depending on how expensive or how much money you have or how many assets you're putting in there. And it depends if you do the legwork to transfer everything or if the attorney's office handles it. And how long can a trust last? And can you, change your mind and dissolve the trust? And that depends, is it revocable or irrevocable? If it's revocable, you can change your mind. If it's irrevocable, you cannot.
Like some of the special needs trusts you were talking about.
Right. And that way, because when you go to qualify for Medicaid, and if you are over-resourced, then there is a QUIP trust, a different trust that is set up for that takes your portion of the Social Security that helps them collect money and pay the facility. So, but one of the main reasons for establishing a trust is to avoid paying estate taxes, and you need to decide what your primary reason is if you decide to establish a trust.
Yep, so that $600,000 number you talked about, you're weighing that against what estate taxes might be and what your needs are. I don't know much about those special needs trusts, but I assume there's advantages to having something irrevocable like that.
Yeah, and basically the special needs is like if a disabled child is going to inherit some money, it can go into a special needs trust, and that doesn't, if it's set up correctly, it should not stop that special needs child from qualifying for Medicaid or state assistance. But the special needs trust will have, it can't be used for the same thing like Social Security disability covers. It has to be used for other things. And each state is different, and you do need to check with an attorney and make sure you get a good attorney.
Consult your attorney, because I would assume different stages of disability, it could be more or less advantageous depending on what exactly a person might be having. Right.
And it may be that they're only getting a one-time inheritance, and then once that money is gone, then that trust will be gone as well. Yeah. So, at the writing of this, under current law, the states of residents with a net taxable value of $338,333 or less are exempt from Ohio estate tax through a $13,900 credit. A 6% tax rate applies to any net taxable value above the mark up to $500,000.
So what you're saying is that first $338,000 is still not estate tax. It's only the stuff above that up to $500,000 with the 6%.
Yeah, and if you look at each state is different. You can Google your state laws and see what it is to see if it's worth setting up, because the estate tax kicks in at $12.06 million for deaths in 2023. Okay, so, and again, these figures change, and you need to verify these figures before making your estate planning decisions if you're going to be looking at a trust. You want to be wise, and that goes back to, we always want to do our homework. It's always been said people don't want to ask questions because they don't want to seem dumb, but it's the dumb question that's not asked which usually will cause a problem down the road.
And oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't think there's a dumb question when you're dealing with this stuff and what's going to happen to your money and how you're taking care of your family and others after you're gone. I don't think there's a dumb question. I think you want to get that right.
You do. There are no dumb questions, and you'd rather know than not know. And it's one of those things. But once you have all your paperwork in order, once you have gone through all the accounts and you've got everything payable on death or transfer on death, or you've set up a trust, you can put everything away and rest and that everything is taken care of. What you have to be mindful of is, as you go, if you add any other assets after that date, you want to make sure you just keep that process going. So you always check your signature card. You always have a beneficiary, a payable on death, a transfer on death.
Because if we start doing these things when we're younger, we have one car, we change vehicles, titles are different. All houses can change, of course, all sorts of different things.
Right. But in the process of buying these things and, purchasing these things, if you do it at the time of purchase, it's done.
Absolutely.
And so, because now if you go back and do it now, then you just have the, a new title expense, which is $5-10 or whatever, just to add that transfer on death. But it's done. Because if you don't, you have everything taken care of but a car. Guess what? You got to open up the estate to sell the car, because nobody has the authority to sell that asset because it's a part of the estate. But the person that's been appointed by the courts to handle the will. Yeah, and
the sad fact for me about it's complicated to die. It is. And I don't mean to laugh at that, but there's a lot that goes into it. So anything you can take care of, you're not bringing your own death quicker by taking care of this stuff or anything like that.
No, but it's nice to know that it is done. Yeah. And in a medical emergency, it's like I always tell my kids, one of them looked at the phone and ICE was listed after their name, and they wanted to know what the ICE was. And I said that means in case of emergency. So if you're in a vehicle accident and my phone doesn't have a passcode on it, so they can look and go through my contacts and see who the ICE is. And part of this is from my legal mind and being in the business, but you always want to make sure. It's better to err on the side of caution and be prepared. And, it's like it's better to need it and not have it than to not have it and need it.
Yeah.
And so we need to always, make sure that we are good. And once it's done, you tuck it away and you just update it, every couple of years or whatever, a new purchase is done. But all this information is information that I learned through the School of Hard Knocks and working with various people and through my family. One of my friends, we thought we had everything covered. Well, she, was over-resourced, and we had to prepay a month in the nursing home. She was being sent home on hospice. So she had to pay that, and that was about $8,000 for the first month. Well, she only lasted 2 weeks. So there was a refund coming back, and because that refund was coming back, I had to open the estate, So even though we can try and plan the best we can, there's, maybe a snafu that's going to, still cause you to have to open the estate. And how much it costs you to open the estate is going to depend on your jurisdiction and the value of the estate.
Yeah.
There are release of administrations, which are usually for under $5,000, and again, each court system is different, and you want to check and see. So it depends if it's an easy estate or if it's going to be a complex estate.
Yeah, and I think you have to give yourself some grace on this too. We're giving you things. There's a list of things. Take care of what you can take care of, but there is stuff like that is hard to see coming. So
yeah,
you can't get too down about it.
No.
All you can control is what you can control.
Right. But when you don't have these things in order, you make it a lot harder for the people that are left behind, and they already have to deal with your loss, and now they have to try and figure out, wow, was there a will? I don't know. Or is there a power of attorney or a living will or a general power of attorney, or where is all this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, even as far as purchasing your cemetery plots and pre-planning your funeral. You want to take care of as much as you can just to help them out, because if you don't take care of this stuff, I think that's kind of being selfish, because if you don't want to make a decision or you can't decide what to do, then you need to see an attorney and you need to talk through it.
Yeah, and one of the other pieces of that is, you can't wait until you're, kind of on your deathbed, so to speak, to do this. How many times have we said the word attorney and the state and the government? These things, they're not fast.
Right.
They're not all fast.
They're not, but if you get sick and you go downhill fast, that's fast. And,
yes.
And what's not done is going to, take care of a lot of, it's going to make a lot of problems for the family that's left behind.
You're not promised tomorrow. That's
right. We're not promised tomorrow. And, the Bible says, absent from the body is present with the Lord. And, we don't know when we're going to take our last breath, and only God knows that. And, we are supposed to be responsible with the assets that He has entrusted us with, and how we handle and manage those assets, is the same on whether we're alive or gone. And, there are a lot of people that do leave, their estates to the church or to, God's work, or, however you want to leave it. That's totally up to you, but you need to do something with it.
You would want to know that your intent. You don't want somebody else deciding. You don't want an estate, right. And you have none of this figured out. I can't even begin to think of what's going to happen, but it's certainly not going to be really what you would have wanted.
No, it's going to go back to your state statute of descent and distribution. It's it's going to come down to the state's next of kin guidelines. and that's how it's going to be distributed.
And I would assume different states might have different guidelines on that.
Probably. They're probably pretty similar.
Well, spouse and children.
Kids,
But still, you want to decide.
Yeah.
You don't want somebody in control of the amounts and what assets are going where.
Or they'll say, I'm just going to give it to this person because I know that'd make him roll over in his grave.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, but you know what? You've worked hard for everything that you have done, and whatever God has blessed you with, you need to take care of it. You need to be responsible, and you need to do it.
And it's not just the money too. You can put in the will. I assume it's sentimental belongings, something you want somebody to have. If they're, you're never going to account for every item in your house, but there are. We all have a small list of things that really mean a lot.
Yeah, I even took, plastic tubs when I first moved in where I was, and I have a plastic tub with the grandkids' names on it, and in those tubs I have placed things that I wanted the grandkids to have, and so it may not mean anything to them, but it might be a collectible or something that might grow in value from the time they go to college, or they might be able to sell it and make some money on it,
You may be surprised. Sometimes those things mean more to somebody than you could possibly know.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because ideally they're much older when that happens.
Right. But we have to be mindful of that, and it does come back to what are your wishes, and if people start guessing what your wishes are, it is going to be a crapshoot because they can only guess or think what you would have liked, or and maybe what you wanted isn't what they decided to do because they're in charge.
Because nobody knows you or your family better than you. So somebody with the best intentions of the world might spread the money out in a way that you had you still been living, just would have known just wasn't going to work right.
And it seems like, the green-eyed monster comes out whenever somebody passes away, which is sad. But it's like before, a lot of times the body's even cold, they're already talking about, where mom had this or dad had that, or, Aunt Mary had this, and, where is this and where is that? And,
and it's a lot of tension anyway, so I can almost understand people just having arguments over stuff. Your emotions are thrown for a loop, so you're just, by taking care of this stuff, you can really help maybe save a few arguments, but probably save some relationships by just getting it taken care of.
Yeah, because it's easier to say, well, mom wanted this, she wrote this down, or dad wanted this.
Documented with an attorney, the whole nine, the 401k had this beneficiary and these percents and all that.
Yeah, and the other thing that you need to look at too is you have aging parents, and we'll talk about this when we do talk about aging parents, but right now Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. So like if you transfer any asset 5 years prior to needing to go into a long-term nursing facility, Medicaid can come back and void those transfers and take that asset back. So that's something else that you really need to look at. At what point in time as you age do you need to look at transferring your house into your kids' names so that you can, qualify for Medicaid later on down the road. Now, I know a lot of times parents don't like to do that because they feel like they're losing control of everything that they own or they have worked hard for. And I understand that, and also if you left it to your kids and there was a divorce, then that spouse is entitled to that 25% or whatever, and there's that there too. But you have to really look at your family dynamics, and you have to look at your assets, and you have to look at what you have. And sometimes it's better to own a lot of things, and sometimes it's better to own nothing. Yeah. And it just depends on, where you are and what your stage of life is.
I mean, I think bottom line, go talk to an attorney. Yeah. You can certainly, or, other such professional, but,
right.
we're giving you some tips, but seek the actual, once again, we're not lawyers or doctors or
Right.
anything of that. Seek the actual legal advice that you need for your situation.
Right. And, and do what you can do by yourself that your state allows.
Yeah. And a lot of these, I mean, certainly what your state allows, but a lot of these things, certainly like, for me, the bank accounts and the 401ks, my 401k system has a very easy,
right.
method of designating beneficiaries and what percents and
right.
and all that. So there's plenty of this stuff that is, pretty easy to go and do.
Right. Right. And, as things change too, you need to look at, if you have a beneficiary listed and then that beneficiary is no longer alive, then that portion of that beneficiary will either go to their kids unless you redirect it otherwise. And, so you need to look at everything. And as we get older, we need to evaluate everything and make those right decisions and pray about it, 'cause,
Absolutely.
God will show you. So, but anyways, why do people not take care of their business?
I fear. I mean, it's a heavy thing to deal with.
Or that, or they think they have all the time in the world.
And you may not.
That's right. It's like we said before.
Yeah.
You said before, we're not promised tomorrow. We never know when we're going to be in an accident. That's why they call them accidents. We never know what our health is going to be. We never know.
And
that's why it's better to do it, take care of it, tuck it away, and be done with it.
And it can happen to anybody. A few years ago, a gentleman I worked with, he was 27 years old at the time. We were working with him that day. That evening, there was a blood clot in his leg, and he didn't make it.
Yeah. Oh.
Those things can happen fast. I have one more point, but go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
I'm good.
I thought about when we were talking about life insurance, and a couple of years ago, I got some more ducks in a row, and so I had life insurance through my work, and a financial advisor I have sort of recommended get some outside of your job too, because jobs can change. So if a job changes and something should happen to you while you're not employed, or you're employed but there's that 30 to 60 or 90-day period where you don't qualify for something at the new employer, you have something over there, and obviously you have to be able to afford that. But I do think as in a lot of this stuff with assets, diversity is rarely ever a bad thing.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's always a good thing. And, the older you get, a lot of times the life insurance policies have a 2-year waiting period where, they're not going to pay the face amount of the policy until 2 years has expired. They'll pay you, what premium payment you have paid plus maybe 30%, but that goes back to each individual policy in the first 2 years. But you just have to, just be smart. Be smart. Don't ask questions. You want to ask questions and look at everything so that you are prepared. And
because we could probably do a whole episode on life insurance and different types of policies and how those are paid out and how all that works. So, maybe that's something we talk about a little more in the future. But in any of this stuff you're doing, ask the questions you need to ask. You talk to the professionals, legal, financial, whatever it might be, medical, that you need to talk to, and just make sure you understand. Now, that would be the worst thing, is just not understanding something you signed, or you were trying to designate a beneficiary, and they're the primary ones and the contingent ones. And I'm not going to go into all that, but you want to understand what it is you're filling out and signing.
Right. And as you're going to every doctor's appointment, tell them, you want this person added in your HIPAA. If you don't want to fill out their form, then get a form, it says, I want this person added to my HIPAA. Give it to the doctor's office when you go, let them put it in your file. Yeah. The more proactive you are about everything, the better it will be for you on down the road.
Yeah, and a lot of this we talk about in terms of making it easier for the ones you leave behind, but really it's God forbid you're sitting there and you're dying, you don't want to have to be dealing with this stuff.
Yeah. Because, you're going to lay there and think, I know I probably would be this way, is I'm trying to think of everything I need to tell everybody to take care of before I take my last breath.
You don't want to be doing administrative stuff. You don't want to be calling banks and lawyers and,
and you may not even be able to. But it's like, take care of your business. It will make everybody happy. It'll give you a peace of mind. It will give the family peace of mind. And it's nice to know you have all your ducks in a row. Well, I think that about wraps us up, doesn't it, on our estate planning, getting your ducks in a row?
I would say so. There's a lot here, so definitely the comments or the comments on YouTube, however you can message us on Facebook, the email, the Greg and Leisa Show at gmail.com.
Yep.
Ask all those questions, and I'm just thankful that when we did the short, you didn't actually like write up an obituary like you said you were going to do and make me read it.
Yep, I was gonna write my obituary.
That was one of the ideas for this or the short. And she's my mother-in-law, and I'd have to walk upstairs after recording to my wife and be like, I just
read your mom's obituary.
Yeah, and I would have. So take care of your stuff. This video turned out well. We will see you next week.
Hey, I wanted to let you know, I talked to her about the Hallmark issue.
You talked to her about the Hallmark issue. How we have to compromise on Hallmark movies. She's watching one right now with Chad Michael Murray.
Yep. Anyways, I just want to let you know I did talk to her about that. I don't know how much progress I made, but I had the conversation.
Well, while we do want to reduce screen time, if there's a movie on that television I truly don't want to watch, I have the technology rectangle we're recording this on. I've got other places I can go, so don't worry about me, folks. I can find something else to watch.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.